Hello, BookTube. I recently changed my routine, which doesn't sound like much to any of you who are young, but I'm 28, and I don't change anything all that easily. It's very, very hard to do. But I recently changed my routine so that it wasn't just go to the Brattle Bookshop, hurry back to the bean. I added a new routine. My baby is a little older. She knows perfectly well that when I leave, I'm coming back. She doesn't panic anymore. She doesn't have any kind of separation anxiety. And so I get to leave her for a bit of time, and that allows me to do errands that have sort of stacked up during the years when I didn't do them. So I created a new routine, a new route that I do. And one of the stops on that route, to my utter delight, is the Boston Public Library. The Boston Public Library, as I mentioned last week, is a big two-part building. It's like the two halves of a brain. One half of it is the McKim Mead and White building from over 100 years ago that is beautiful. It is a work of art inside and out. I have toured people through that building, and they are stunned by how beautiful it is. And that it also, the McKim Mead and White building also includes Bates Hall, which is one of my favorite places in the world. I don't get to use Bates Hall anymore. It's the hall, like the Rose Reading Room of the New York Public Library, that has wooden tables and high vaulted marble ceilings and tons of banker lamps. And it's a wonderful place to go and work if you're going to read or write or something like that. And I know that because I've done it many times, but I do all my reading and writing right here on my fainting couch now. But the other half of the Boston Public Library is the actual library. The McKim Mead and White building is the research library. Doesn't have any new releases. Doesn't have anything like that. But right next to it, conjoined with it, the inner walkway, and then right next to it on the sidewalk, is the Johnson building that was made decades and decades later during Boston's mercifully brief flirtation with brutalist architecture, so that the building, when it was originally done, if you Google what the Boston Public Library Johnson building looked like when it originally debuted, I was stunned speechless when I saw it, because it was so incredibly ugly. It looked like a combination of a police precinct and a bomb bunker. And it had some redeeming features. It had a gigantic natural light well on the inside of the building that was ringed all around on 3 different floors by seating, so that you could go into the Johnson building, the old Johnson building, on virtually any day and have the pleasure of working by natural sunlight. There's something to be said for that, but oh my God. It was a dingy, dark, horrible nightmare. And the city of Boston, the library, put a huge amount of time and effort and money into renovating that library and did a wonderful job. It's barely recognizable from what it used to be like. And to my delight, the Boston Public Library, the Johnson building, I don't use the McKim Mead and White building anymore. That's a pang in my heart, but I'm not going to use it just to use it. It has to feel right, and I would be miserable doing any work there. Errands is one thing, but work, I want to be right here with my baby Bean. I don't want to be anywhere else. But the Johnson building is the actual library, brimming with people, constantly coming and going, and actual books to check out. I went last week for the first time in forever. They actually had to renew my library card. That's how long it had been since I went. So I went last week, and I borrowed 4 books. And I was a little timid at first because I don't know the Johnson building, the renovated one, at all, which is kind of weird. Once upon a time, I knew the Johnson building backwards and forwards. I knew where every individual book was. Now, not so much. So I needed to get my bearings. So last week, I just stuck with the new releases, which are right inside the door. And I got 4 new releases. And I showed them to you in a video. But one thing I didn't do in that video, obviously, because I hadn't read them, was talk about them, review them. So I thought we'd do that first, before I show you what I got today. I went back to the Boston Public Library today. I got more books and returned the ones that I had. So, at long last, wonderfully, a library is back in my life. And not only a library, but my 3rd favorite library in the world. Very, very nice. The one thing the Boston Public Library lacks that for a long time it had, for 90 years, is an ongoing book sale. Forever, I could take you to the room in the McKim Mead and White building and take you to the room where the Boston Public Library book sale was held all the time, every week. It was ongoing. That isn't true anymore. The Friends of the Library put on a sale every other month. So there's one coming up on the weekend, but the weekend is supposed to be 115 degrees. And I don't need any more books. But this is the one thing the library lacks. The Boston Public Library is now back in my life. That is wonderful. And I worried at first because I have a fairly good line on new releases, whether it's electronic or books that we get in the mail here every day. Libraries tend to be months behind on new releases. It's the best they can do. There'll be waiting lists for the newer stuff. I don't want to do waiting lists. So I was a little worried that the stuff in the new release section I would literally have read it all or not have any interest in it. But I found things. And we're going to look at them. We'll start with Jeff Shepard's book, The Nixon Conspiracy, Watergate, and the Plot to Remove a President. This stank. It was terrible. It was written in the, I don't know anything about the author, but it was written in the full lap of 21st century nihilism that basically says at its heart, basically at the heart of this book is, oh, who can really tell if anything is right or wrong? This is an attempt to exonerate Richard Nixon and to say that he was treated, to use a phrase that has become toxic and notorious in the 21st century, very unfairly. It was treated very unfairly. Donald Trump has been saying for the last 70 years, no one has ever treated him fairly. No matter what happens to him, the first thing he will say is, I've been treated very unfairly. Like an 8-year-old. And this author basically does that throughout this book as a contribution to Nixon studies. Then the next book, I had hopes for. This is by Michael Gerhardt, and it's called Lincoln's Mentors. And it's a study of the men who made Lincoln into a practicing politician, a polished writer. A lot of people don't really pay attention to what a good writer Lincoln could be. And I wanted more of it. I really did. I got a lot about the mentors, and that a lot of the stuff that I got about the various mentors was not all that interestingly done. These were interesting men. And the author doesn't... I was reading the book and I was thinking, okay, well, you're not... I'm now 2 mentors in, and you're not doing a very good job making these seem interesting on their own. So I guess I'll hold out hope that the Lincoln that they bring together, that they compositely create, will be interesting. And that Lincoln was not. There's a lot in here. It's a solid work, but I've read lots and lots of Lincoln scholarship that was a lot better. And that's disappointing because I like the premise of this. Then the next book that I borrowed was a celebrity memoir. I should have known better. This is Coming Up for Air by Tom Daley, the diver, who came out as gay and shook the sports world just briefly, and has a really good instinct for the social media aspect of being a sports celebrity. He married a famous writer, Dustin Lance Black, and he just recently made headlines again because he's an affirming presence for a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, because he's secure in himself. So he doesn't have to worry about stupid gender stereotypes. So you might have seen, he recently went viral by knitting on the sidelines of an Olympic event. He said that it calmed him. So he was there in his COVID mask knitting. And it was done with such quiet confidence that no one could gainsay it. I don't think I even saw the neck-bearded quasi-fascist manosphere getting all up in arms and saying, is this what masculinity has come to? I don't even think they could do it. It was just so quietly, be yourself. Just be yourself. It's okay. Just be yourself, no matter what. That is wonderful. And you'll remember, if you watched my video last week, that I was just assuming that if you live with a brilliant writer, Dustin Lance Black is a brilliant writer, that if you live with a brilliant writer, of course, you're not going to write a memoir on your own. Tom Daley is not going to write a memoir on his own. He seems like a really nice kid, very funny, very outspoken, but I would guess that he has the IQ of a gerbil. So he's not going to write a book on his own. I was just assuming, well, hubby is right there. You had a kid together. So, he's going to write your book for you, or at least brush it up. I did not detect any brilliant writing in this book. If anything, I'm almost tempted it didn't happen. But I'm almost tempted to think that Tom Daley had a hand in writing this because it was tooth-grindingly boring. Even some great stories. The kid has some great stories, as you would if you were an Olympic athlete and, the front and center of world attention for a while. Even those stories, I was reading them and I was thinking, oh, come on, I wasn't there and I could do a better job than this telling this story. So this was, I'm sure that it is bucking people up and giving them courage in the right quarters, but there's so much wasted potential here. and so many recounts of various swim meets. I was ready to drown myself. I could practically smell the chlorine in my own hair, not in a good way. I was what I worried about. People who devote their lives to this, you get it with tennis stars too, except the great Arthur Ashe or Billie Jean King just recently. But mostly you get it in sports stars where they just assume, well, I built my whole life, my career, every thought around this sport. Surely everyone is every bit as monomaniacally interested in the sport as I am. No, we're not. We watch you for 15 minutes out of our day be inhumanly great at it, and then we go on to do other things. So I can't really recommend this. It's charming, I guess, in a way, but it's largely a celebrity memoir. And then the last book that I got last week was The Standout Thing from the books that I got that week. This is by Leo Damrosch. This is Adventure. This is his biography of Casanova. And it was brilliant. Just brilliant. This author wrote a book called The Club that was really, really good. He wrote a biography of Jonathan Swift that was really, really good, the paperback of which comes with a very sexy blurb on it. But this towers over everything that I've read by this author. It's just amazingly, amazingly heartfelt. Casanova, of course, is a one-note figure. He's easy to reduce to a cartoon. And to their credit, many of his biographers have not done that. It's pretty hard to do that if you read his own book, or any part of it. It's pretty hard to reduce him to one dimension when you read the incredible, what's the word that I want, bravery of his own book. And that is clearly what Leo Damrosch did, because this is a fantastic biography. I'm so glad I didn't get this from the publisher. And this is a 2022 release, and it is now a very strong contender to be on my list of the best biographies of the year at the end of the year. And the Boston Public Library did that for me. So, how happy am I about that? Yes, it was a few duds, but I got a great book out of it, and I read those other duds. Whether I ended up loving them or not is immaterial. It's the chances you take at the library, right? Because you're not being charged anything. So I put all those books in a tote bag, and I brought them back to the library today. And I figured, since I am a creature of routine, if I borrowed 4 last time, I borrowed 4 this time. So I borrowed 4 books this time, and I ventured into the library. So only one of these was something I found in the new release section. I even ventured upstairs in the Johnson building. And I found a book. This first one is a BookTube made me do it. I did a Autumn Amour TBR yesterday, a romance reading event created by the Bookish Bryants, where I'm one of the co-hosts, and so is Sarah, the Bookish Knitter, who is the romance goddess of our little corner of BookTube. We're both co-hosts for Autumn Amour when it finally does roll around. I did a TBR for September, and one of the books on there was a Harlequin special edition. Sarah loves the category romances that are put out by Harlequin, by an author named Roan Parrish, a gay novel. Roan Parrish had written the very first Harlequin category gay romance, and this was a follow-up to that. And Sarah left a comment on that video saying she's eagerly awaiting that new Roan Parrish book. And I wasn't really thinking of anything until I was browsing at the library, just like all the rest of you do, just like I used to do. And I thought, well, if that means Sarah liked it. She liked the first one, and wants to read more of this author, maybe knows a lot more of this author than I do. So I found a Roan Parrish book and borrowed it. I've never read anything other than the one Harlequin special edition gay romance that this author wrote. I've never read anything else. So I found one called Best Laid Plans at the library. Always a bad idea. I wish romance authors didn't do it. I wish no authors did it. It's always a bad idea to put a lazy cliche or idiom as the title of your book. But this author's credit in the Bank of Steve is really good. And this is a man who's been moving his whole life, finally finds a reason to stay put. Charlie Matheson has spent his life taking care of things. When his parents died 2 days before his 18th birthday, he took care of his younger brother, even though that meant putting his own dreams on hold. He took care of his father's hardware store, building it into something known several towns over. He took care of the cat he found in the woods, so now he has a cat. Nobody's perfect. When a stranger with epic tattoos and a glare to match starts coming into Matheson's hardware, buying things seemingly at random and lugging them off in a car so beat up, Charlie feels bad for it. His instinct is to help. When the man comes in for the 5th time in a week, Charlie can't resist intervening. So I'm sure you all know somebody like that in your life, somebody who always puts their own needs second and helps other people. And that's this. And this, Sarah probably already knows this. She's probably already read this book. But this came out in years ago. This came out in 2021. This is fairly recent. And it's not going to be constrained by the category requirements of Harlequin romances. So I got this. Definitely pop it down, and we'll see. Then the next, I got a great big thing by an author I really like, a great science fiction author. I don't think I knew that this volume existed. This is The Winds of Marble Arch and Other Stories. This is a gigantic collected short story volume by Connie Willis, the great Connie Willis. I don't think I knew this book existed. I'm racking my brains, but Connie Willis is a great science fiction author. A heck of a person, too. Tons and tons of fun at conventions. And this is a gigantic collection of her work, which will certainly include lots of things I've never read. Things culled from various periodicals that I didn't follow at the time, or whatnot. There'll be famous things in here, too. I'm sure Firewatch will be in here. I didn't actually check. But Firewatch is in here. But there'll be a bunch of other things, too. And tons of extra material. The underscript on the front page says, in which may be found personal correspondence, travel guides, references to royalty, weather reports, parking fines, and other violations, including matters of life and death, and afterwards, an epiphany or two, and an appendix. That is clear, classic Connie Willis. So there's going to be a ton of stuff here that I haven't read. And it was just sitting there on the shelf. And then this next one's also huge. I got a bunch of big books this time around. It was probably ill-advised since I was lugging them around. This one is a poetry collection. So maybe we'll be seeing it when I read poetry. It's a beautiful volume from Wake Forest University Press. They never sent this to me. This, I think, is last year. No, it's 2022. They never sent this to me. I may request it. It's really nice. It's called Bone and Marrow, and it's an anthology of Irish poetry. Big, thick thing. I have the Big Penguin anthology of Irish poetry, and I love it. Go back to it all the time. And this is more of the same with very nice design. I may drop a line to Wake Forest Press and see if they'll send me a copy of this if I review it. But I found it at the library and grabbed it. Now that I think about it, I found this. This was the one that I found in the new release section. So no wonder it says 2022. I bet that the Johnson Building has a rule about that. I bet if the book is new, it has to be in new releases before it gets a home in its own section. I bet that's the case, because there were books of all descriptions in the new release section. So I grabbed this. It'll be a perfect browser's paradise. Actually, the Connie Willis book will too. I'm hoping that I don't just get sucked in and start reading everything in order. And then the last thing I got, I found today when I was out roaming around, when I was out exploring, I found the graphic novel section. There are graphic novels in new releases on the first floor, but I found where the graphic novels are. And that opened up all kinds of possibilities, because it's a big section. It's a long wall of graphic novels. But I got one that I read one of the things in here. I haven't read the others, but I already know I'm going to love it. I went, again, with familiar ground. I got a volume of Will Eisner, who's, if any of you know him at all, you'll probably know him as the illustrator, the creator of The Spirit. Kind of fedora-wearing, spirit gum mask, two-fisted vigilante-type character whose the running gimmick is that the Spirit looks terrible at the end of his fights. He gets all disheveled, as he looks terrible even if he wins. But that was only a small fraction of what Will Eisner did. And most of the graphic stuff that he did, the graphic novels that he did, aren't superhero-related in any way whatsoever, and they are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He did a book about tenement stories, old New York. He did, I think one of the last books that he did was a graphic novel that tells the story of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Not just its origin, but how it's wrong and who wants it to be wrong. That was angry and brilliant, just amazing. And I found a big collection, Will Eisner's New York, Life in the Big City. So this has New York, the building, city people, notebook, and invisible people. I've read Invisible People, and it was amazing. This is just Will Eisner's artwork. All through here. Just amazing artwork of his. The genius of this man on the page is just amazing. So, look at that. Just incredible. Not spandex-wearing Kryptonians, not the usual thing that I would get in a graphic novel section. There were some of those. I will be going back. But these are the 4 things that I got at the library this week. So I will be picking and choosing. I'm picking through them. I'm going to read every single page of these before next Wednesday. So even though the short story collection and the poetry collection invite browsing, but I'm still going to read it all. So next Wednesday you will get a review of all 4 of these, and we will see. If it's not 115 degrees, I will go back to the library and we'll see what I get next Wednesday. But this is my library haul for today. Will Eisner's New York, what I wouldn't give to have this volume. It's probably available, but it's probably very expensive. Bone and Marrow, a new book. A new gigantic collection of Irish poetry. Then The Winds of Marble Arch and Other Stories by Connie Willis. This is from, are we told? We will be told. When did this thing come out? If this is a 2022 release, I'm going to be pretty upset. 2007. Just plain missed it. That was right when I was getting back into reviewing, so I might not have even known that it existed. And Best Laid Plans by Roan Parrish, who's an author I already know I like. It was a new book coming out in September, but in the meantime, I'll get another one under my belt. I think this author is fairly prolific. So maybe if I like this one, maybe there's a lot more Roan Parrish to read. Fine with me. I don't know how much more the Boston Public Library has. The thing about the library is, as you all know, since you've been going to the library all along, while I took a long vacation, is that everything changes from week to week as books come back in and go back out. So there are always going to be surprises. I'm up for it. I'm very much up for it. And if I'm enjoying having the Boston Public Library back in my life this much now, when it's boiling hot outside, imagine how much happier I'm going to be if the weather cools up at all. I'm very happy with this decision, and I'm also, just as a side note, I'm very happy that all of you seem to like this. That is wonderful. That you're interested in what I get at the library and what I might think of it later on. So that's wonderful. More of us should do that. More of us should work the library back into your routine. They need it, first of all. Find out a way to donate to your library. You can write it off on your taxes. But they need it. They need as much patronage as they can get. And it's also lots of fun. I want it. And again, as I said last week, if you do incorporate the library, your library, into your booktube world, if you're a booktuber, I want to hear about the library itself, not just what you got, but also the library itself. What's it like? Is it near to you? Is it new? Does it annoy you in any way? Do you have a good staff? The staff at the Boston Public Library, not good. At the moment, not good. Surly, uncommunicative. You walk up to them. I didn't today, but if you walk up to them, they look at you with affront. They would really rather that you not approach them. Not all libraries are like that. I've had libraries where the staff was overwhelmingly happy to see you. Not Budinsky, but let us know we're glad you're here. That sort of thing. Is that your library? I'd love to hear about it. But anyway, that was my Boston Public Library trip for today. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.